After the rise of the Islamic State, during the times of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and in the later periods including the Age of Andalusia and the Ottomans, we have considered the oldest historical mosques in more than 12 Arab and European countries. In order to see the landmarks of those time periods and the Islamic conquest that are associated with them, and the role that they played in spreading the civilization of Islam, which the Arabs are carrying forward with every passing generation. And so, the mosques we cover in this series have many historical stories since they were founded. The mosques in this series have stories that have to be told and cannot be forgotten. Their stories are a living embodiment of the age of Islamic Renaissance. They are part of Islamic history. They are the oldest and most important mosques in the world. Mosques with a vibrant history. With God's permission, they were built to last. If anyone wanted to study the history of Tunisia since its Islamic conquest in the time of Akbar bin Nafi, to this day, one need not look any further than the monumental mosques which are bearing witness and chronicling this history, as they represent an architectural record of the past, present and future of this country, starting with the architectural styles which were predominant during the early days of the conquest, in which Islamic architectural styles became intertwined with Byzantine influences. Next, one will see the architectural independent style which began to take shape in the time of the Akhlabids. The most prominent products of this style being of Akbar in Al-Qayrawan and the Mosque of Al-Zaytuna in Tunis. These two mosques form their entirety.
Historical or Islamic architecture in Tunisia can first and foremost be divided into two schools, the first being the school of Qayrawani architecture. It is a school in which the official and civil styles can be seen most predominantly in the architecture, while the second school is that of the coastal areas, which is characterized by a much more military style. What needs to be noted about the Qayrawani school is that it was predominant in the inland regions, while the coastal military school of architecture is, as evident from its name, found in abundance in the areas on the coast of the Mediterranean, as they face the greater threat of invasion by the Byzantines and other European nations who would raid across the Mediterranean Sea.
The first page in the record of Tunisian Islamic architecture can be found in Al-Qayrawan, in the Mosque of Akbar bin Nafi, which is the second university mosque established in Africa after the Mosque of Amr ibn al-As in Al-Fustat, in the 50th year after Hijrah, or 670 CE. The mosque was the center of the city Akbar had established at that time as the headquarters for the Islamic conquest armies in the North Africa and the starting point of the call to Islam in those regions.
The city of Al-Qayrawan was built at the hands of the conqueror Akbar bin Nafi in the 50th year after the Hijrah, and as a result of its strategic location, it became a link between the eastern and western parts of the Arabic Islamic world, As was the case in most of the newly constructed Islamic cities, the focus of the center was the mosque, and so the Kairouan Mosque lay at the heart of the city. The city was not only a point of cultural exchange between the East and the West, but was also a trade center for those two regions.
When Akbar established the Kairouan Mosque, it did not resemble the mosque we see before us today, neither in its size, style, nor in the building materials, all of which were renewed in the time of the Aghlabids, in the year 221 Hijra or 836 CE. The original structure was built out of aggregate, palm tree trunks, marble and granite, while the current structure incorporates carved stone as well as engraved and stained wood in addition to sculpted marble. The mosque today covers an area of 9,000 meters squared and from the outside looks much like a reinforced fortress with high walls and towers, with 8 separate gates or entrances, a structure which reflects the defensive climate during which it was built. At the center of the mosque is a large open-aired courtyard with marble floor. This is surrounded by corridors with rounded arches held up by stone pillars. And in the middle of the corridor, which leads to the main prayer hall on the axis of the niche, is a large arch surrounded by 2 smaller arches. In the main prayer hall are rows of parallel pillars which are topped near the niche by a dome which is heavily decorated. In the wall of Qibla, or direction of prayer, is a niche which is surrounded by many decorative elements and engravings done on marble slabs with openings that allow light to filter through. There as well, one can find a carved wood pulpit which is decorated with geometrical and floral engravings. The carved and stained wood ceilings form a famous Kairouani style which was prevalent in the area for nearly 4 centuries. The minaret of the Mosque of Akbar is considered one of the most beautiful minarets built in Africa and is located on the opposite side of the Qibla wall at the end of an open courtyard. This minaret is said to have become a template for all those who came after it. The Mosque of Akbar is to be credited for the first place status that Al-Kairouan conquered in the scientific world at that time in North Africa after it was challenged by the newer cities in the region, such as Tunis with the Zaytuna Mosque and Fez in Morocco with the Karawayoun Mosque. And with that, the Mosque of Akbar remained a beacon of Islamic thought in North Africa and Andalusia for nearly 150 years. After which, it continued in its activity at the same pace as that of the new mosques, which began to emerge in the 3rd Hijri century. Many of that era's most famous scholars emerged out of it, and especially those specializing in Maliki jurisprudence, which is prevalent in North Africa.
The Mosque of Kairouan is one of the oldest mosques established by the Muslims in the region of North Africa. At the time of its establishment, the mosque did not only have a religious role in the community, but also played a role in education as well as in politics. And so the Kairouan Mosque, in its different roles, contributed to the education and spreading of Islamic culture in the Maghreb.
The city being a trade center made the Kairouan Mosque a starting point and a beacon of culture, as the cultures of the East and West Arab nations met and traded not only goods but cultural diversity. This played a great role in the spread of Islamic culture and the Arabic language in all of North Africa and in Andalusia. Because mosques in Islamic culture, and in addition to their religious roles, played the role of universities and schools for religious and other scholarly endeavors.
The architecture of Al-Qayrawan Mosque, with its artistic and decorative elements, became an example to be followed in the region of North Africa and Andalusia, and was even used as a template for mosques in the Orient.
The African school of architecture, with its military aspect and that of its civil Qayrawani aspect, became widespread in the central Maghreb region in cities such as Ashir, or in the fortress of Ibn Hamad, and also in Morocco, in the city of Fez, in the Qayrawan Mosque, which is known to have been established by a group of Qayrawani origins, and in some aspects, this style reached Cordoba. The building or architectural style, which can be said to have been the starting point of this spread of traditional Tunisian architectural styles, which came to be in the time of the Aghlabids and the Fatimids, specifically beginning with this mosque.
The next page in the important history of Islamic architecture in Tunisia is that of the Mosque of Al-Zaytuna in the capital city of Tunis, the home of the first university in the Islamic world. It's considered the second mosque in Tunis after the Mosque of Akbar bin Nafi in Al-Qayrawan. Its construction was completed in the year 116 Hijri or 736 CE.
The Zaytuna Mosque is one of the most prominent institutions in the region, and has been since its construction in the time of the Viceroy Ubaydullah bin al-Habhab in the year 116 after Hijrah. The mosque's history is closely related to the history of teaching and education in the region, and among the most famous of those to have gone through the doors of the mosque was, of course, Ali bin Ziyad. And ever since that time, the Zaytuna Mosque has performed two important roles in the community: the traditional religious role as a house of worship, and the second role, an educational institution, which became more predominant during the Fatimid era, reaching its pinnacle during the time of the Hafsids.
It is said that the name of Zaytuna Mosque or Olive Tree Mosque is derived from a lone olive tree which was found in the middle of a desolate area and was seen as a sign of good fortune and became the building site for the mosque. It is said that a saying was coined at the site, and from it the name of the country Tunesia, or Tunis in Arabic, was derived, relating to the appearance of the green tree in the desolation. The most prominent elements of Zaytuna Mosque in the square prayer hall is covered with flat roofs. It was built out of stone, with the use of brick evident in some locations. Its niche consists of minutely detailed decorative elements, forming a unique example of early Islamic architectural styles. The mosque is also considered the template for the Northern African mosques in terms of pillars and nodes.
The arch it is famed for is the one which is shaped like a horseshoe. It was a new invention at the time and was not at all widespread during the Byzantine and Roman eras. The arch itself first emerged in the Orient, as is evident from the design of the Dome of the Rock. In Africa, it became popular and widely used during the Aghlabid era, or maybe a little before that, in different parts of the Arab world. This arch was very popular, thanks to the ease of its construction. It achieved the height that certain architectural elements needed, especially when it was required to allow light to filter through the space. This arch was also less expensive to build than its counterpart, the half-barrel arch, which required a lot more work and more materials, as well as skill.
The Zaytuna Mosque was the center of attention and was cared for by all of the caliphs and princes who ruled Tunisia in the succeeding decades, but those who took the most care of it were the Aghlabids.
There is no doubt the Aghlabid dynasty began when al-Rashid wanted to annihilate the Idrisids, and so he sent Ibn al-Aghlab to Morocco and to Al-Qayrawan specifically, and he appointed him viceroy of the region. But this man, who was charged with the ending of the Idrisids, worked to create his own dynasty or empire even after he was done with his task, and appointed himself caliph of the region. He was charged with as a viceroy. And so he took full control of the region, appointing himself in the high position of ruler. He later on added Tunesia to his domain. And then he worked to add all the surrounding lands in the region, and he created his own nation, which was called the Aghlabid dynasty.
Al-Zaytuna Mosque became the most important educational institution in North Africa and Andalusia during the time of the Aghlabids. This mosque played an important cultural role in Tunisia. The thousands of scholars who graduated from it and contributed to the country's renaissance and the sense of liberation from French occupation.
The Mosque of Tunis, the Mosque of Al-Zaytuna, drew a sizable number of scientists, many prominent scholars, famous travelers and intellectuals, especially some from the middle and western parts of North Africa. They all went there and studied in that very famous university. And from this mosque arose a local elite which contributed greatly to the intellectual movement in the Hafsid nation, and from there moved on to Egypt. One of the most famous products of this movement, who went to Egypt and played a pivotal role in its culture, was Abdul Rahman bin Khaldun.
The Grand Mosque of Susa is yet another Aghlabid monument in Tunisia. It's associated with many of the other institutions and defensive structures within Susa. It lies near the city's famous harbour, from which were launched the conquests of Sicily and southern Italy. Besides this mosque lies the famous fortress of Susa, one of the most famous forts in all of North Africa. It played a pivotal role in defending against any attacks that came from beyond the sea. This is all in addition to the role that it played as a place of worship for prayer and soul-searching. Its chambers housed behind these fortified walls perform both military and religious duties simultaneously. There are many Ottoman mosques in Tunisia as well. However, the architectural style of all these mosques is not at all representative of traditional Ottoman mosques.
Not all Ottoman architecture is of Turkish origins, but in these cases, specifically, it is Ottoman architecture with many local elements, which did not change with the change of power, but rather was concurrent with it.
Of the Ottoman mosques in Tunisia is the Mosque of Hamouda Pasha in Tunis, the capital. Named after the Ottoman ruler in Tunisia at the time of its construction, the mosque was built in the year 1065 Hijra or 1655 CE. It was built close to the Zaytuna Mosque and would later become a beacon of Hanafi jurisprudence in Tunisia, which was the official creed of the Ottoman dynasty.
The Ottoman dynasty tried to spread its influence and to spread its creeds, starting with the construction of numerous mosques and schools all over the lands they controlled. These mosques and schools were built in the city of Tunis to begin with, and a few others were built outside of the city. The majority of these structures were greatly influenced by Ottoman architecture. This style of architecture began in Istanbul. An example of this style is the Mosque of Muhammad Bey, which is influenced by and employs the architectural style of Ottoman Turkey, which was started by Sinan Pasha in Istanbul. This style of architecture is characterized by a large dome which is surrounded by several smaller ones.
The record of Islamic mosques in Tunisia will remain open as more and more pages are added to it. Mosques that will always have the full attention of historians, architects, and researchers, and many others, for what they represent in architectural, historical, and religious importance.